You know, every now and then you see an image that just stops you in your tracks. It makes you go, wait, what am I looking at? Well, this is one of those images, a bizarre, almost perfectly square shape on the surface of Mars. So what is it? And how on Earth did it get there? I mean, come on, when you see something like that, your mind just starts racing, right? Is it some kind of ancient ruin, a landing pad for something? It just does not look natural.
So this whole story kicks off back in the late 1990s. NASA had this orbiter, the Mars Global Surveyor, and its job was to map the entire planet like never before. And somewhere in that massive flood of pictures it sent back, this thing popped up. We're going to get to the bottom of what's really going on here.
Right, so let's get into it. The Mars Global Surveyor's mission was to create this super detailed map, one strip of land at a time. The main goal was to find good, safe spots for future rovers to land. But while it was doing its job, it stumbled across this anomaly, something that just really didn't seem to belong. And this is really the core of the whole mystery, isn't it? Think about it. You just don't see a lot of straight lines and perfect right angles out in nature. It's all curves and arcs and messy shapes, especially on a planet that's been getting hammered by asteroids for billions of years. So a sharp 90-degree angle? Yeah, that's gonna stick out.
Okay, and check this out, because this is super important. On the left, you've got the raw original picture, and on the right, that's a digitally enhanced version. See what happens? The enhancement makes those edges look way sharper, way more artificial, and this is a perfect example of why scientists are always saying, stick to the raw data.
It's amazing how powerful those enhancements are. They kind of nudge your brain into thinking, wow, that has to be something incredible. But hold on, before we all jump on the "it was aliens" train, we need to talk about something, well, something about us, about how our own brains work.
Because believe it or not, this is not the first time we've seen something weird on Mars. And to really get a handle on this square, we've got to rewind and talk about an even more famous illusion. We've got to talk about the face on Mars.
All right, let's hop in the time machine and go back to 1976. The Viking 1 orbiter snaps a picture and boom, there it is. What looks for all the world like a giant human face just staring up into space. And people, understandably, went nuts. It actually took decades, and that same Mars Global Surveyor with its fancy new camera to go back and get a better look.
And wow, what a difference a few decades of technology makes. So on the left, you've got that creepy, low-res face from '76, but on the right, that's the high-res reality. It's just a totally normal, kind of boring, eroded hill. What looked like eyes and a mouth, turns out it was just a trick of the light playing with shadows on a really grainy picture.
You know, there's actually a word for this. It's called pareidolia. It's just a fancy term for our brain's habit of seeing familiar patterns, especially faces, in random stuff. It's the exact same reason you see like a dragon in the clouds or the man in the moon. It's not a bug, it's a feature. It's just how we're wired.
And the funny thing is, once you know what pareidolia is, you start seeing it absolutely everywhere. And Mars is like a gold mine for it. The face and the square are really just the headliners in a whole concert of Martian illusions.
I'm talking craters shaped like Valentine's hearts, another one that looks exactly like the classic smiley face. Seriously! And my personal favorite, there's a tiny rock that looks like Bigfoot just hanging out. And of course, it happens here on Earth too, right? Think of the man in the mountain that used to be in New Hampshire.
But okay, here's the kicker about that little Martian Bigfoot. When you first look at it, your brain just assumes it's, a Bigfoot-sized. But in reality, the whole thing is only a few inches tall. Just a tiny little rock that's been sandblasted by Martian winds.
This totally reminds me of a great joke from the comedian Mitch Hedberg. He said, "I think Bigfoot is blurry. That's the problem." And then he goes, "Suppose Bigfoot is actually fuzzy." It's hilarious, but it also kind of gets at how we deal with blurry, incomplete information, you know?
All right, so now we have our toolkit, right? We know about pareidolia, and we know how important scale is. So let's circle all the way back to our square. Let's really break down how something like this could actually form all by itself.
First things first, you have to wrap your head around just how big Mars is. Get this, Mars has about the same amount of dry land as planet Earth, the same total land area. So that's a gigantic canvas for nature to paint on.
So, here's the simple recipe for making a square on Mars. Step 1, start with a planet's worth of real estate. Step 2, for billions of years, let wind and ancient water carve zillions of random ridges and lines all over it. Step 3, pure statistics. If you draw enough random lines, it's not just possible, it's guaranteed that some will cross at a perfect 90-degree angle. And then, step 4, our human brain scans over all of it and goes, whoa, wait a minute, look at that one.
And that's really the key question, isn't it? Why do we single that one out? I mean, think of all the ridges that cross at, say, 47 degrees or 112 degrees. We just ignore them. They're boring. But our brains are trained to see that 90-degree angle and think, that's special. That looks like someone made it.
And that brings us to the final piece of this whole puzzle. Because this story isn't just about rocks and numbers. It's about something deeply human. That urge we have to believe in something, well, something amazing.
Look, being great at recognizing patterns is one of our superpowers as humans. It's how we survived. But it's kind of like a double-edged sword. That same skill is what makes our brains sometimes see patterns that aren't really there at all. Whether it's a face in a cloud or, yeah, a square on Mars.
There's this quote that just nails it. Interesting to me psychologically how potent the urge is to encounter something you can't otherwise explain and say aliens must have done it. It's so true, right? When we see something we can't explain, that leap to aliens is just so tempting. It's a huge part of who we are.
But you know what? Maybe that urge isn't a flaw. In fact, it's what makes us curious. It's the engine for our imagination. It's what gives our storytellers and artists their material. Honestly, it's what makes the universe a much more interesting place to live in.
So at the end of the day, that square on Mars, it's a cool geological quirk, sure, but it's amplified by the way our own brains work. It's just a great reminder that as amazing as the universe is, the most complex and fascinating machine for interpreting it is right between our ears. So that leaves just one question, doesn't it? What's the next great mystery our pattern-seeking brains are going to find?